I was 18 years old when I learned something adults never tell you about your first job. Some managers don't manage people. They manage fear. At that age, I thought working hard was enough. Show up on time. Pick up shifts. Smile through rude customers. Be dependable. I thought if you did everything right, people in charge would notice. I was wrong. The manager who taught me that lesson, let's call him Richard, didn't reward hard workers. He rewarded obedience. And if he didn't like you, your schedule disappeared. Your breaks disappeared. Your requests disappeared. Your reputation disappeared too. For almost 2 years, I watched him humiliate teenagers, gossip about employees, play favorites, and act untouchable. Then one day, I stopped being the scared 18-year-old crying behind the restaurant by the dumpsters, and became the reason he carried a cardboard box to his car before opening shift. Fresh out of high school, getting hired at that restaurant felt huge. I still remember the excitement. My first paycheck, buying food without asking my parents, feeling independent. The restaurant was one of those massive corporate chains everyone knows, always busy, constantly understaffed, and cycling through employees so fast you barely learn names before people quit. Most workers were teenagers, college students, young adults trying to survive. Managers knew that. Young employees don't report abuse. Young employees stay quiet. Richard understood that perfectly. At first, he seemed normal. Strict. A little arrogant. But normal. Then patterns started showing. Certain employees always got preferred schedules. Certain employees never got denied time off. Others, especially people he disliked, struggled for everything. Breaks. Food. Shift swaps. Help. Respect. He played favorites like it was sport. And everyone knew. Nobody challenged him. Because challenging management at 18 feels impossible. About 2 months after starting, a coworker asked, "Hey, can you cover my shift Friday?" I needed money. I said yes immediately. I followed procedures. Went through management. Everything correctly. Then another coworker overheard. A male coworker. He suddenly claimed, "Oh wait, I wanted that shift." No prior arrangement. No approval. Nothing. Richard looked between us and chose him. Instantly. No discussion. No explanation. I remember standing there confused thinking, what just happened? I had already agreed. I already went through channels. But Richard dismissed me like I didn't exist. I swallowed my frustration. Finished working. Because anyone who has worked customer service knows. You learn to postpone feelings until after your shift. I kept working. Taking orders. Refilling drinks. Smiling at customers. Doing all the automatic things people in service jobs do while their brain is somewhere else entirely. But something felt off. I couldn't stop replaying it. Not because I lost a shift. I lose plenty of shifts in life. That wasn't the issue. It was how quickly Richard dismissed me. Like my time didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. About an hour later, while I was stocking cups near the back, one of my coworkers approached me carefully. The kind of careful people use when they're about to tell you something painful. She lowered her voice. "Hey, I don't know if I should say this." Immediately my stomach dropped. Because nobody starts a sentence like that with good news. "What?" She hesitated, then said, "Richard was talking about you earlier." I froze. "What do you mean?" She looked uncomfortable. "He told someone he didn't give you the shift because he didn't want to deal with your attitude today." For a second, I genuinely thought she misunderstood. Because attitude? Me? I was one of those painfully anxious employees who apologized for existing. I thanked customers who yelled at me. I covered shifts. Stayed late. Did extra cleaning. I avoided conflict like it was contagious. So hearing that felt surreal. Then came the second realization. He wasn't just denying opportunities. He was creating narratives. About me. To other coworkers. That hurt more. Because schedules come and go. Reputations stick. Underscore 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 underscore. Chapter 4. The conversation I wish never happened. I spent the rest of my shift debating. Should I ignore it? Should I confront him? Would confronting him make things worse? At 18, authority feels enormous. Managers feel untouchable. Eventually frustration won. Near clockout, I found Richard. I remember trying so hard to stay calm. My voice was polite. Too polite. The kind people use when they're scared. I said something like, "Hey, can I ask why I wasn't allowed to pick up that shift earlier?" Simple question. Normal question. His reaction? Immediate defensiveness. Not explanation. Not clarification. Criticism. He crossed his arms and started listing reasons. One after another. Like he'd been storing them. "You have a bad attitude." I blinked. Confused. Then, "I'm not even sure you enjoy working here." Another hit. Then, "People think you're a bitch." Exactly like that. No sugarcoating. No professionalism. No attempt to soften it. Just, "People think you're a bitch." I remember my chest tightening instantly. Because when you're 18, still figuring yourself out, still insecure, words land differently. And he kept going. "The restaurant industry is tough. No one here has your back. You need thicker skin." Looking back now, I realized something important. Adults who abuse authority often disguise cruelty as advice. They call humiliation constructive criticism. They call bullying preparation. They call disrespect tough love. At 18, I believed him. For a moment, I wondered if maybe everyone hated me. Maybe I was difficult. Maybe I deserved being excluded. That's the dangerous thing about manipulative people. If they speak confidently enough, you start questioning yourself. I nodded through most of his speech. Because crying in front of managers feels embarrassing. Humiliating. I excused myself. Walked toward the back dock. And the second nobody could see me, I broke. Not dramatic movie crying. Not loud sobbing. The quiet kind. The exhausted kind. Tears while staring at concrete. Trying to breathe normally before someone notices. I remember thinking, why am I crying over a restaurant job? But it wasn't about the job. It was about feeling small. Feeling targeted. Feeling powerless. I stood behind that building with my vape, trying to collect myself. A couple coworkers came outside. One smoking. Another taking trash out. Neither made it weird. Nobody said, "Stop crying." Nobody mocked me. One girl simply asked, "You okay?" Which somehow made me cry harder. Because kindness hits different after humiliation. I'll never forget something another coworker said. She shrugged and told me, "Richard does this to people." Simple sentence. Huge meaning. Richard does this to people. Meaning. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't uniquely awful. There was a pattern. Eventually I spoke with our general manager. Carefully. Nervously. I explained what happened. The comments. The treatment. The gossip. To my surprise, something happened. Richard got written up. At the time I thought, that's justice. Problem solved. I was wrong. Because people like Richard rarely change after consequences. They adapt. They become quieter, smarter, more selective. And over the next year and a half, I noticed everything. Not intentionally at first. I wasn't plotting revenge. I wasn't building evidence. I was surviving. But patterns kept appearing. Again. And again. And again. Different employees. Same behavior. I don't remember the exact first entry. Only that one night after work I opened my phone. Open notes. Typed something like, "Richard denied break despite policy." Saved. Nothing dramatic. Then another incident happened. Another note. Another. Another. Soon it became habit. Dates. Conversations. Witnesses. Comments. Behavior. At first the notes were for me. Proof I wasn't imagining things. Proof experiences happened. Because toxic workplaces create strange confusion. You begin wondering, was it really that bad? Am I sensitive? Did I misunderstand? Documentation answers those questions. Over months, the list grew. Pages long. Patterns impossible to ignore. The longer I worked there, the more stories surfaced. One coworker crying in the bathroom after being mocked. Another denied reasonable time off. Someone embarrassed publicly. Teenagers learning workplace anxiety before adulthood. And Richard always seemed comfortable. Confident. Untouchable. Like consequences belonged to other people. Then came rumors involving things far worse than rude management. Things crossing boundaries. Personal information. Private conversations. Inappropriate comments. I started realizing this wasn't merely bad leadership. This was someone abusing access, abusing authority, and assuming nobody would challenge him. Because most employees were young, temporary, replaceable. Something changed around year 2. Not overnight. Slowly. I got older, more experienced, less eager for approval. The 18-year-old desperate to be liked disappeared. In her place, someone observant, someone tired, someone harder to intimidate. And one shift finally pushed everything over the edge. Not because it was the worst thing he'd done. Ironically, because it was pathetic. A difficult customer started causing problems. Complaints, demands, aggression, normal restaurant chaos. I asked Richard for support. That's management. Managers manage situations. His response? I don't know what to do. Then he left me there. Alone. Handling escalation myself. I remember staring after him thinking, that's it. That's actually it. Not anger. Not tears. Clarity. The strange calm before a decision. Because suddenly, I stopped asking, why is he like this? And started asking, why has nobody stopped him? That night stayed with me longer than it should have. Not because of the customer. Not even because I was left alone. But because of what Richard said. I don't know what to do. A manager. In a busy corporate restaurant. Saying that to a 20-year-old employee. And just walking away. That's when something in my head finally clicked into place. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. It wasn't just attitude problems. It wasn't even toxic workplace behavior in the casual sense people like to dismiss online. It was negligence mixed with authority. And worse, he had been doing it long enough that everyone around him had adapted to it, including me. That realization didn't make me angry immediately. It made me quiet. Because anger is loud, but planning is silent. I didn't call it a plan at first. It started as just a habit. Notes, incidents, dates, short descriptions. Sometimes just one line. Sometimes entire paragraphs. Over time, my phone became a record of almost 2 years of behavior. Not opinions. Not emotions. Facts. Who was there? What was said? Who witnessed it? I remember scrolling through it one night and feeling something strange. It didn't feel like gossip anymore. It felt like documentation. Like something that could actually be used. And that thought scared me a little. Because it crossed a line in my head. From, I need to survive this job, to, this should not be happening at all. People always imagine big dramatic incidents when they think about someone getting fired. But that's not how it usually works. It's not one explosion. It's a pattern. And Richard had plenty of patterns. Employees denied breaks without justification. Shift decisions made emotionally instead of fairly. Comments about staff that crossed professional boundaries. Public humiliation disguised as honesty. And something worse underneath all of it. A confidence that nobody would challenge him. Because most of us were young. Temporary. Easy to replace. That's what he relied on. Not authority. Not skill. Replaceability. I didn't wake up one day and decide to destroy someone's career. That's not how it felt. It felt more like reaching a point where ignoring it became harder than addressing it. The final trigger wasn't even something huge. It was the moment he left me alone with a difficult guest and gave up responsibility with zero hesitation. No backup. No support. No concern. Just abandonment dressed as leadership. That was the moment I thought, if something serious ever happens here, he won't take responsibility. And that's dangerous in a workplace like that. So I made a decision. Not emotional. Not impulsive. Just final. I was going to report everything. Properly. I created a new email account. Completely anonymous. No connection to my real name. I didn't want attention. I didn't want drama. I just wanted distance. I listed everything I had documented over almost 2 years. Not exaggerated. Not emotional. Structured. Clear. Each incident separated. Each violation described carefully. Patterns explained without opinion. Just behavior. Repeated behavior. And I remember hesitating before pressing send. Because no matter how justified something is, there's always that final second of doubt. What happens after this? But then I thought about every employee he had humiliated. Every teenager who thought they were the problem. Every situation he escalated instead of solved. And I clicked send. The worst part wasn't sending it. It was after. Waiting. Because once it's out of your hands, you stop controlling the outcome. You just live through it. For the next week, everything felt normal. Almost suspiciously normal. Same shifts. Same faces. Same routine. But something in me kept watching carefully. Looking for changes. Then it started slowly. A manager called into the office. Whispers between supervisors. A shift in tone when people mention Richard. No details. No announcements. Just tension. And then, the day it happened. It was a morning shift. Busy as always. People clocking in. Orders starting. The usual chaos of a restaurant opening. And then someone said it casually. Almost like it wasn't important. Richard's gone. At first I didn't react. I think my brain refused to process it immediately. Gone how? Transferred? Fired? Quit? No one elaborated. Until later that shift. Someone saw him walking out. Carrying a box. Personal belongings inside. Not returning. Not coming back the next day. Not scheduled again. Just gone. Like someone removed a piece of the system. Quietly. Efficiently. Permanently. And in that moment, I didn't feel excitement. I didn't feel celebration. I felt something simpler. Closure. Nothing dramatic happened. No big announcement. No public explanation. Just adjustments. Schedules smoothed out. Tension dropped slightly. Certain employees seemed lighter. And I noticed something important. Nobody defended him. Not once. That silence says a lot more than words ever could. Because if a manager was truly respected, someone would speak up. But no one did. And that told me everything I needed to know. A long time ago, my grandma told me something I didn't fully understand back then. She said, "Don't get mad. Get even." At the time, I thought it sounded dramatic. Even a little harsh. But I get it now. Because she didn't mean revenge in an emotional, explosive sense. She meant accountability, documentation, patience, timing, not reacting in the moment where emotions are high, but responding when clarity is absolute. Richard never got yelled at, never got a scene, never got drama, just consequences built from patterns he created himself. And that's the part people forget. You don't need to exaggerate reality. When reality already has enough weight on its own. I don't think about Richard much anymore. But sometimes I wonder, how many people like him are still out there? Still assuming no one is keeping track. Still believing teenagers won't speak up. Still mistaking silence for permission. And if there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's this. Some people think power means control over others. But real power is something else entirely. It's what happens when someone finally writes everything down and refuses to forget.